Thank you. August 28th, we'll call council time agenda to order. Council roll call.
Counselor Young?
Here.
Counselor Belcott?
Present.
Counselor Bowerman?
Present.
Chair Medvigi?
Present.
And Counselor Marshall? Here.
Okay, we successfully navigated number one. Any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Chair Medvigi, Leslie Lopez, Chief Civil Deputy. I do have a couple of amendments. They both relate to the executive sessions. The first one, 9.2 for potential litigation will be 5 minutes instead of 10.
Well, that's a favorable change.
However, I then am adding a 9.3, which is pending litigation under the same RCW for 10 minutes, and there's no after action.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and make those two amendments, and that's it. Item 3, public comment on agenda items only, please.
Grab the signage. I think we'll get this down to.
The first person that is signed up is Carmen De Leon.
I stand there
Yeah,
and speak up.
and just speak, yep.
Okay. So you guys want me to identify myself, because I'm pretty sure you know who I am. I'm Carmen De Leon, my nickname's Mello. And according to this agenda, executive session 9 here says pending litigation, RCW 42.30.1.010, whatever. And another one that says potential litigation, it's gonna be in secret. It's gonna be private. Is that my understanding? Because according to this, it says RCW 42.30.060 says ordinances, rules, regulations, etc., adopted at public meetings, notice secret voting prohibited. No governing body of a public agency shall adopt any ordinances, resolutions, rule, regulations, order, or directive except in the meeting open to the public, and then only at a meeting the date of which is fixed by the law or rule, or at a meeting of which notice has been given according to the provisions of this chapter. Any action taken at meeting failing to comply with these provisions of this subsection shall be null and void. No governing body of a public agency at any meeting required to be open to the public shall vote by secret ballot. Any vote taken in violation of this subsection shall be null and void and shall be considered an action under this chapter. So I want to know, what is this about? Because if you guys are facing litigation and lawsuits, then somebody screwed up somewhere. And somebody should be accountable for money loss, time loss, and a potential lawsuit that's going to cost the taxpayers money. So I question whoever this is. That's why I say this says executive. And I take it last time, every time I've been asked to be removed from executive. As you know, that's in violation. It's supposed to be public. So whatever you guys are voting on, it needs to be made public, especially when pending lawsuits. That's a big deal. So I don't even know where my minutes are, but,
You have 30 seconds.
oh. Trust your money, it says in God we trust, eh? God's the boss. Nobody else. Amen.
So before we go to the next speaker, just so you're aware, we never take a vote and take action in executive session. We always do that in public in compliance with the RCW.
So what's
Okay,
legally
so
guilty?
go ahead and
What's the
call the
lawsuit
next
about?
speaker, please.
Tell me what the lawsuit's about.
Kimberly Goheen Elvin.
Hey, we need a sense of humor, I'm all for it. It's called comedy relief.
I love it. Kimberly Goheen Elbin, patriot, life citizen of Clark County, Washington, USA. I'm going to be speaking on the minutes of August 21st, of which I gave birth to my first child a few years ago. All council members here were present. I wanted to make note of that because I will be making note. 7 concerned American legal people spoke about the mining overlay in Chalachi Prairie and using our public railroads to transport rock from the much debated concerns of the I-5 interstate bridge. And if Mayor Ann McInerney Ogle has her way, light rail will be included as they grow to be the second largest populated city in Washington state. I'm praying for the public hearing on this matter for a multitude of people here, as our forefathers warned us to do. I spoke at the 1 p.m. meeting that day, so you had about the agenda. You had a work session. I wanted to speak on a work session topic, just like you had today. And I wanted to speak on that. And this council, along with the unelected boss of Clark County Manager, the county manager said that's not an agenda item only, so I couldn't mention my concerns. Well, that choice is a soft kill to my First Amendment rights. And I support that by saying the work session has the same call-in number and the same access code number as does the council time at 1 p.m. These meetings are held on the same day by the same council, and this is our local government, and we want more time. We want you to give us our public comments again, our 3 minutes, and then 3 minutes, which is, I'm asking for 5 minutes actually, because really, who's here? Who's ever here? You know, so the public is not aware of what's going on. That's my duty, as I took that oath, to protect us from foreign and domestic enemies. And I consider you a domestic enemy because of numerous things that are going on. As far as this executive session, by memory serves me correctly here, it is about open public meetings, and I want to know what's going on in those. We've been wanting to know. You've been doing this for months and months and months. Okay, so you follow the rules. Ha, I doubt that. I know things are going on, and you're taking little votes that don't matter to the public, but to yourselves as to how you're going to act and be. Now, this is our government. We want to set that straight. We want more time because these next few months are going to be very, very difficult times for people. So I want to know what is going on in those. That's what Mello was trying to say. She was trying to ask what is going on in those meetings. We want to hear about it now. You need to not be secret to the people.
Thank you.
We are your boss, not an unelected official.
That concludes your time.
There's no.
No one online? Okay. And no further public comment. We'll move on to old business, 4.1 minutes of August 21st.
I move approval of the minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Any corrections, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. New business, 5.1, sales tax leakage. I'm assuming that's Mark?
Yes,
Okay.
that's gonna be tough to see on that little screen.
You got it.
Oh, no, I know what it says. Just hope the council
Well, I have a hard
has
copy.
access to it.
I've memorized it.
Favorite
And
topic.
thank you for doing this and updating it.
Yeah.
Please proceed.
So, from time to time, we've had comments and discussions about sales tax leakage, and I had committed to update the sales tax leakage numbers, I think it was a few months ago. And so I did that, sent it to Kathleen so that she would have it available for the council, and now it's coming up back to council for discussion. I don't know if you have any particular questions on this. I can kind of walk you through this if you'd like me to, and then I assume we just wanted to have a discussion on this.
So let's go right to questions. Have each of the counselors had a one-on-one with these updated figures?
No, I only
Okay.
sent the email to the council.
Did everyone get a chance to look at this new spreadsheet?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Excellent, yeah. So let's just start with the one that's up right now. It's the very first tab, if you have the electronic version. And what I do is I look at the sales, retail sales for each of the counties. And then I look at that based on a population basis. And so there's data that includes all of the counties. And then I kind of par that down to what is more applicable to Clark County. And so I have another analysis that says, okay, here's our top 10 counties, the top 10 largest counties by population, because they're more indicative of what we are. And then my last iteration of this analysis, I actually pull out King County, because King County is so large. I mean, they're 10 times larger than anyone else, and they skew the analysis. And so when I look at the 10 largest counties, you'll see that this tab actually says top 9 summary, because I pulled out King County because it just skews everything because it's so large. And so using this analysis, it takes the retail sales that all of these counties received, and then it divides them by population. So we get retail sales per capita or sales tax receipts per capita. And then it extrapolates to where, if we were on average with the other 9 large counties, where should we be as a county? And in the bottom, you can see that, and yeah, right there, we would be somewhere between 2.9 or almost $3 million and $4 million below if you just look at the average receipt per capita of the largest 9 counties. Now that is revenue that is only our county portion. So we get about 40% of the sales tax in Clark County. So the county as a whole would be below the average, about 10 million, and on the high end, about 10 million, and 4 million of that would have come to the county, the Clark County as a whole. So that's really the kind of boiling down what the analysis does. So again, we're in a range somewhere between probably $3 and $4 million of sales tax leakage, which is actually quite a bit less than the numbers we were talking about years ago, probably pre-COVID. You know, we were probably talking, maybe $7 to $8 million back then. And I think, buying habits have shifted. I think we're seeing the full impact of what's called streamlined sales tax, where it's destination-based. So if you order something online and it's delivered to your home, they're required to collect sales tax and remit that to the county now, whereas 7 years ago, before the Wayfair decision, that was not the case. So we've benefited from online sales, people shopping from home, maybe not commuting over to Oregon every day. Maybe they're working from home more often now. And so the numbers kind of come down in the last few years. So with that said, I'm happy to answer questions, or if you want to have some discussion on this. Again, it's not a scientific measure. We don't know exactly what the number is, but based on average assumptions, that's pretty much where we're at.
So let's go right to questions. I do have some points I want to highlight as part of this discussion, and why I wanted the numbers to be revised once again. But let's go to questions first. Any online?
Yes, I have one.
Please, go ahead, Karen.
So these numbers, even though we benefited some from online sales, they are still absolutely shocking. And it tells the story of Clark County all too well. But when we look at just the question that some people raise, what else could explain this low number except the obvious, kind of thing of traveling across the bridge to purchase large items? There's the question, do Clark County people simply buy less? Or, I've heard that, Or what else could be given as a reason that probably is not the case, but that, that we probably need to discuss to understand?
Are you asking me that? Off the top of my head, I don't know of any other reasons. I think Clark County's proximity to a state that does not collect sales tax and the easy access. I mean, we have 2 major bridges that go over there, so it's easy to access that. Just about any other border county with Oregon, the access is not as easy. And certainly the shopping options, if you look at the bridges along the Columbia River, aren't there as well. You can't just drive across the Bridge of the Gods and, go to a mall. So I think this is probably one of the only reasonable explanations of why we have this deficit in sales tax per capita.
Well, I
I don't-
totally agree. I totally agree. However, what about the argument that some people make? Well, Clark County people are simply more savvy and just buy less. Do we know?
I've not heard. I don't know. I mean, if you look at our median incomes, I mean, we're not significantly different than the Portland metro area. I just don't know what would cause us to buy less. I've never really thought of it, I guess, so.
Well,
I don't
my
know where
mind
we
kind of
get
goes
data
to
from.
those people who fight the data. What is their basis for fighting? And I bet there's something that shows that Clark County people buy just as much, but I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
Karen, do you have other questions? Michelle, Glenn,
But, just a comment.
please.
Sometimes it is also that there are products that a Clark County resident wants that are available only across the bridge. And I'll give you an example. We were wanting to buy a particular television, having researched, the pros and cons of different ones. And I won't name the store because there's no point in that. But the store that is here in Clark County doesn't carry that particular TV, whereas the one right across the bridge does. And, so are we going to change the nature of what we buy, or are we going to go across the bridge? And that's a choice that sometimes people face too. So I guess the message there is we need to be sure that we're supporting merchants to carry all of these things that are advertised as being number one in the market, and support them in doing that.
And Kessler, I would agree with you. I think in years past, that might have been one of the arguments that, Clark County just didn't offer the same shopping options as Portland. And maybe that's true in some cases, like your example, and maybe with certain high-end products, maybe we don't have those stores here yet. But, the retail options in Clark County have expanded quite a bit. I mean, we have a Salt and Straw down there. So
Yeah.
we don't have to go to the Salt and Straw over in Portland anymore, so.
Well, I still have this exact same concerns that we all do. I was just trying to understand the opposing point of view, and having experienced that television example today and yesterday, that was heavy on my mind as we look at these data.
And if you do shop across the river, you're always able to submit your sales tax through a use tax form, which is actually required, but I don't know that anybody ever does that. So, yeah, I don't know that anyone does that. One other thing that I might want to mention, and I think this was a change they made 2 years ago. It used to be that you could show your Oregon ID and be tax exempt on this side of the river. Now, if you want to be tax exempt on this side of the river, you have to collect it and actually submit a request for a refund. So it's not upfront anymore. So I think that there's a lot of people that would either hang on to an Oregon ID or maybe come across and you know, we just don't do it on the front end. It's actually request now, and maybe people aren't as apt to request, especially if it's small amounts.
Oh.
Okay, Glenn or
Yeah,
Michelle?
Chair, thank you.
Questions, comments, please, go ahead, Glenn.
Yes, I was just gonna say, you know, they're living in the downtown area. You know, I do a majority, like for my business, I do a majority of my shopping in Portland. And that's because it's the location, you know, it's a long distance for me to go to any other Home Depot, for example. I own and operate a business and have to fill out the use tax form and pay for all of the, you know, all the tax is received from me, but you know, other people that live down here, I think the vast majority of people don't realize that they're supposed to, you know, pay sales tax on anything they bring across the bridge. But it's just one of those factors that I think people aren't from this area in downtown aren't necessarily going across the bridge to evade taxes. It's just because it's closer to the things that they need. But that was just kind of a comment. My question is, I mean, is there anything at all that we can do to try to close this gap?
So that's what I hope to get to with my comments towards the end. I'll just bring it here. The previous policy advisor suggested, and Mark and I had talked about the number, it's a retention of our sales tax of about 0.18%. May be a rough swag at making up that difference, which would take the entirety of the legislature to agree to do it, and as well as the governor. But I want to speak more to that at the end, so hold this discussion point. Do you have other questions, or Michelle?
I do have a question, Chair. I went back to the email that Kathleen forwarded us from Mark, and I guess I was confused because I'm looking at what you said in the email, Mark. It says the impact of bordering a no sales tax state has diminished over the past few years as a destination-based sales tax for online sales has fully taken effect. Let's see, Clark County retail options have grown. More people are working remotely, and relative cost of traveling to Oregon to shop just isn't as attractive as it used to be. So I guess I was confused by you saying it just isn't as attractive as it used to be. I thought it was the opposite.
Those are just my personal opinions. I personally would not drive across the river unless, you know, in Councilor Young case where it's a convenience thing. I wouldn't drive across the river to go to a Home Depot because I have a Home Depot, you know, with a mile away. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to be stuck in traffic on the bridge. To me, spending an hour driving back and forth just to get something in Oregon isn't as attractive as, you know, isn't an option that I want to spend.
Okay, gotcha. I don't know if any of or all of you, so I'm on the Wausau Transportation Committee. They just asked me to participate a couple of weeks ago, and they are considering in the state of Washington charging a retail sales tax to cover road maintenance. So it's sort of kind of related, but not really. But I thought that was something that was interesting that could maybe impact us. That's all I have.
Councilor?
Yes, so I'm just wondering how much things, if you could estimate how much things have come down because of the online sales tax. If we're in better shape, how much better shape are we in?
So I think the first time I did this was about 5 years ago, or maybe 6 years ago. And at that time, our leakage was probably double this. It was probably somewhere in the $7 to $10 million range. And now it's come down again to the $3 to $4 million range. So maybe half of what it used to be, at least from our initial analysis. So.
Okay. That's all, I'm curious what we can do about it as well.
So let me jump right in on that, because my recollection is somewhat different on the numbers. But there are two, in my mind, two seminal events. One was getting charged sales tax on our online orders. And I know Sharon Wiley and others took responsibility for that and took a lot of flack for that. But that was a seminal event to temper the impact on us. The other one was the pandemic, people changing their shopping habits, and Amazon Prime. I mean, Amazon Prime is like amazing. So those have kind of tempered the impact on us. So the slightly different memory I have is, I don't know when you had prepared those numbers, whether it was in light of our discussions or you had already prepared them and then told me about them. But I'm thinking 5, 6 years ago, I remember specifically, you know, there was a spread. It was an estimate, as best you could come up with. It was about $25 million.
Yeah.
And so, because I was proselytizing that out in the community, hey, after 10 years, we've lost $250 million in tax revenue. Anyway, whatever it is, even if you look at the numbers today, they're still telling, they're very striking. So the journey for me was this. As a new counselor, I'm hearing, okay, you got a structural deficit, how do we fix that? Are we going to raise property taxes? Do we need to? Property tax capped at 1% brings in, just rough numbers, 700, 800,000 in that first tax year. Of course, it's cumulative over other years. When the bulb went off, it was in conversation with Mark on this sales tax issue. And the fact that we were losing millions of dollars, whatever they are, whether it's 2 million or 4 million or 7 million every year, that would go a long way in balancing our budget. It would really put us on a level playing field with every other county in Washington State. So there was a study, and I don't remember the year. I know I had found it and then shared it with you. It was by Washington State. I want to say it was around 2017, 2015. And it did a comparison study of disparate taxing systems. By far, Clark County was the worst impacted in Washington State. By far. There's no other county that is as hard hit as we are because of the Portland metropolitan area being right across the river. No comparison. But they also look nationally, because there are other examples in the country where they have the sales tax, no sales tax adjacency. We're in the top of the worst of disparate tax impacts in the nation. Going back to what Karen brought up, another thing that went before I was on the council, I tried to always shop locally. That's something we all can do. Hey, please shop locally. And I went to a local hardware store to buy a tool, and I don't remember what it was. But the conversation, and this is very telling, it's not just selection. Hey, I got to go to Portland to find what I want. What the merchant owner told me was, oh, we don't carry that because no one would buy it, because they'll just drive across the river to buy it. So they don't carry the more costly merchandise in some of these mom and pop stores because they can't afford the inventory, knowing that people are going to buy it either online or across the river. So it hits us on many levels economically. So the proposed solution is heavy lifting. We can't even get the legislature to do any kind of tax reform, and they've had a task force, they've been working on it just to try to put a little bit more equity in the state taxing system. I don't think they've ever come out of committee with any specific proposals. And this is different. This is talking to the legislature as one county, because there are none that are similarly situated, although there are a few that we could probably have join us. And then getting the governor to agree, hey, Olympia, please let us retain a little bit more of our sales tax, because we have one leg hobbled because of the sales tax leakage. One size fits all in Washington State is really hurting Clark County economically. Now, of our local legislative delegation, so I started looking for help and meeting with them individually, and they're all mindful. They don't dispute the numbers. A common refrain, especially from one side of the aisle, was, but you're not taxing enough. Why would we give you money back in Olympia if you're not taking advantage of every tax opportunity you could? And I did ask at one point, and I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, hey, Mark, what would happen if we taxed to the maximum in every area we could? The numbers still paled in comparison to what we're losing, even with the low estimate of sales tax leakage. So that's one counter argument against giving us relief. The other was, well, you're not taking your property tax increase every year, and that's partially true. It's been episodic. Some years it's been taken, some years it hasn't. My continued conversation with the legislative delegates is this: you know, you're penalizing us, one, by the tax system and Oregon's tax system. Two, you want to penalize us more by saying we can't give you any relief unless you tax everybody even more. And by the way, if you tax to your maximum amount, you're still not going to make up what we're losing in sales tax leakage. So I just wanted to keep the conversation going. You need to raise the hue and cry. This would fix it for us, even if we had half of that. I mean, even if we saved $1 or $2 million a year in retained sales tax by the grace of the legislature and the governor, it would make us a whole lot more whole. So that's my take on it. I can probably find that study. Do you remember that study I sent you? It was a Washington State-sponsored study that detailed this, and I think pretty much paralleled what Mark was doing as far as a strategy on how to estimate the sales tax. I don't think there's any accounting best practice that is any better than what Mark has shown us here today. But it's an issue we'll always live with as long as we're right across the river, and as long as Oregon doesn't have sales tax. I mean, it's always going to be there. Any further discussion, comments? Spread the word. That's my only message. Shop locally. It'll help.
I have a couple of thoughts. You know, if we do take the 1% every year, I think last year it was around $700,000, and so then that carries over year after year. So that would make up a chunk. And with the, you know, just looking ahead the next few years, what's going to be happening? Well, the bridge is going to be replaced. What's going to happen to shopping in Oregon when that happens? So I think we could anticipate it going down, but then looking even beyond that, with light rail, people will just zip back and forth, easy as pie. So that'll have a big impact on probably bringing up that deficit even more. So there's multiple factors at play. I agree, it could be very difficult to convince our legislative delegation to do something just for Clark County, although sometimes they do things just for Clark County. That it's come down probably quite a bit from that 25 million, less compelling than it was.
Other questions or comments before we move on, while we have Mark here?
I have a question. Do you want to see any sort of financial model that incorporates like the 1% and other available taxes here just for information in preparation of potential discussions with the legislature? Or is this enough information for you?
Well, Mark had given me that 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, I saw it, and I did talk to some of our local legislators, I think it's helpful to have in the kit bag, especially if the numbers have changed over the years. So I don't know how hard it is to come up with.
I don't quite recall, but I'll look for that. I'm just wondering, it seems like the last couple of years we have taken 1%.
Right,
So maybe
that's
this,
true.
maybe this is a good time since we said, yeah, we are now doing that.
Exactly.
And I think we've even taken bank capacity.
Yeah, we have.
And so we
Exactly.
are utilizing all of those things now, so
We have a
really it's not
stronger
an excuse.
argument.
So in having this conversation with, Identity Clark County, that was the first thing he said, but you have been taking, it,
But I think we have
because,
now.
you know, anyone that hears about the issue is like, oh my gosh, yeah, Clark County's hobbled, we need to do something about it. So,
We can do that.
I would be interested in that and just in, you know, looking forward to what the budget might look like going forward, what our options are, would be good to know.
yeah, so the only last thought is, even though, I mean, it makes an argument that, hey, we are taking a reasonable effort at taxing our constituents to the maximum amount, but we're still losing a couple $1 million a year in sales tax, or more. I mean, it could be more. I mean, it's impossible to know for sure. Exactly.
But I think having all of those numbers teed up, ready before the legislative session will help with that discussion of like, if you do this, then it will help us, which helps our services, especially law and justice in our community as well.
If you look at
That's
that,
where it's gonna hit.
you know, you look at that $4 million number, and we did the analysis just a month ago about what the cities are contributing to those regional services. That's a $4 million number. And so, you know, you couple these together, and it's starting to,
You know, I forgot that point. That's a big point. And you, because when you gave me the numbers originally, 5 or 6 years ago, you told me what you thought the city of Vancouver was losing as well.
Sure.
Because it was a sizable, it was in the multi-million-dollar
Well,
range too.
They receive more sales tax than we do. So if we're losing 3 to 4 million, they're probably losing, 4 to 5 million.
And so it should be
Let's
emphasized
join
to
forces.
our fellow counselors with the city to at least get them to join the bandwagon. Anything further on this topic
Yes.
before we move?
Just
Yes,
one
please.
thing. You know, it seems to me, as I remember Jordan's list of policy initiatives for the legislature, that this sales tax leakage was not on the list this year, is it? If not, I think we should be sure that it is there again.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure if I had it in the last iteration of my list, but I'll make sure that it's on there.
Thank you.
That's great.
Good point.
Thank you, Jordan, because I don't remember that it was there. But being sure that it is important. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great discussion. Hopefully we'll see some relief someday on it. Counselor reports.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
And to whom are you speaking? Okay. I attended a WTP, which is a long-term funding group for the Washington Transportation Plan. And this was a workshop where they were asking for input as well. It was really interesting, and there were a lot of points that I could bring to you, but there was one that really hit me hard. And that was, what is the future of funding for our roads? And their answer was tolling. And here's the reason why. Fuel efficiency. They said fuel efficiency means lower gas tax. And to put numbers on that, it is kind of shocking. If you keep in your head while I'm saying this, the figure of $1.3 billion, that's the amount of gas tax roughly now. And by 2050, which is not that far away on the scale of things, it jumps to 300 million. So from 1.3 billion to 300 million, how do you make up that deficit? And their answer is tolling. And is that going to be by road usage? And their feeling was that that was probably the most viable. And in that regard, it was very interesting that they would have drivers pick how they want to report their miles. In other words, would it be by odometer reading or by a GPS plug-in? Whoa, that is really, some people would call that an intrusion. But anyway, one way or another, they would need to, if it's by user and reporting on miles and road usage, they've got to get those readings. So is it by user or by flat fee, which is a tax, becomes the question. And there will be a debate on that as time goes along as to how we make up this road tax. Interesting concern for the future. Of course, it's premised on the idea that fuel efficiency will be as dramatic as they feel it will be.
Thank you for
That's
that. Glenn or Michelle, did you have something online?
Yes, I do,
Yeah.
Chair.
Please, go ahead.
Well, I just briefly mentioned that I'm now part of the Wausau Transportation Committee. And actually, like Councilor Bowerman, we discussed what you just talked about last Thursday, and we're having another meeting this Thursday because they're trying to figure out how to cover the maintenance of roads in our state. We discussed tolling the retail sales, online sales tax that like would be assessed to like Amazon deliveries. So they're legislatively actually discussing that in particular, the retail sales tax. Maybe a extra tax on tires to get some of that funding. And there was one other thing I cannot recall, but we'll be discussing tomorrow. So roads is very much a concern, and we talked about it at the May Wausau conference too, that there are issues just across the state in trying to maintain roads, and the labor and construction of roads is very top of mind. That's it from me.
Thank you. I know Sue has a council report.
I have really, it could be a policy report, but I'll just mention it now. It deals with the Dabbler timber sale. I don't know if everyone has gotten multiple emails on this. I know the chair and I think probably over 500 emails, and they were targeted really to DNR, but yesterday we had some folks come in and ask the council ourselves to take a look at this, and I'd be interested in learning more about that particular piece of property, old growth, and I know Jordan had done a little bit of looking into it, and the auction sale that is proposed is not going to be on the agenda until October. So we might have a little bit of time to find out more about this, if it meets any of our desires for preserving old growth or carbon sequestration, how it may fit in with the Legacy Lands program. I think it'd be worth, since there has been a lot of attention that we've received from this, to take a closer look and see if there's any action we might want to take.
So I will chime in as well. I never counted the emails, but they were from the whole country, including New Jersey. You name it, we got emails from around the country. This is a well-organized outreach. And I wish, in retrospect, that someone had come to us earlier to let us know, because at the time, the open public comment period was like 1 day away, and we were like, what is this even about? And anyway, I've already spoken with Jordan after we had those public comments yesterday to try to learn what's happening, where are we at, what does this look like, does DNR have any interest in looking at any conservation efforts? I think one of the big questions right up front was, is this private land? Was it Weyerhaeuser? you know, we don't know basic information, and DNR does not come to us asking permission or even, asking for comment. I mean, occasionally they'll reach out to a counselor in a specific district to say, hey, we're planning on doing this. But I don't think this happened, it's in District 5, but they didn't reach out to you, correct? A DNR initially?
No, DNR has
Okay.
not reached out.
So anyway, I'd be interested in finding out what exactly is going on, and if there are any opportunities that the county wants to get involved in, if there is an opportunity. So I understood you haven't been able to make contact with DNR yet.
So I left them a voicemail, first thing this morning, and so I'm hoping they'll call me back soon. I've got a contact over there that I've worked with before, and so I'm hoping that she'll call me back. She's one of the trust specialists, so she works with these land acquisitions. And so just learn a little bit more, because they do have information online, and I have, you know, kind of found some of the details about the auction and the timing of the sale, but not a lot of other information. So I've got that outreach done, and so I'm hoping they'll call me back shortly. I'll keep bugging them. So
I'm asking the other three counselors online. I mean, we're just kind of fact-finding right now. We're not proposing anything, specifically. Are the other counselors interested in learning more?
Just what DNR says from my perspective.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would be interested in learning more. I'd like to understand the issue a little bit better and, you know, see where where the authority lies, who has what authority and that type of thing.
Okay, super. So I think Jordan's got the action for right now, and
I'll stay on top of it and see what I can find out from DNR.
Glenn, you look like you have some kind of filter on your screen. It kind of looks very romantic, like a honeymoon kind of filter there. It's all, maybe it's my eyes. I'm just kind of.
Yeah, I don't have the charger to my laptop and it died, so I'm on my phone. I have no idea what's on there.
Right. Other counselor reports? Okay. I don't have any. And moving on to work session request 7.1.
Okay, the first one is really short. I think I know what they're trying to do. So our code was last updated with the 2015 Washington State Building Code. I believe that code has been updated, and so I think what staff is going to do is come back with some proposed revisions to our sections of code that are more restrictive than the current adopted Washington State Building Code. So they want to bring that to council just to get some direction.
I'm interested. Everybody else?
Question, why 2021?
It's 2025 is what our code is compliant to, and I believe the Washington State Building Code has been updated since.
So it was last updated 2015, and then, so the 2021 is a mistake. Is that correct?
Yes, my guess is that maybe, I would have to confirm because I didn't have any discussions with anybody, but the Washington State Building Code was updated. It says 2021, it may have been updated in 2021, I don't have confirmation on that date, but it has been updated since 2015. So we want to bring our code up to that, especially those code provisions that are more restrictive than the state, which has been council's desire.
I have a
I'll
question.
put thumbs up if we are looking at the latest Washington State Building Code, but not an old one.
Yes, no, I think that is correct, because they don't update them very often. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just wondering about our planning for climate change and addressing that, and whether or not will we be looking at our building code. I don't know what the decision matrix is in terms of building codes, if this whatever we do goes to the state and then comes back to us, or we just follow the state's lead? How much flexibility do we have related to revisions to building code?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in particular related to climate change.
I don't have the answer with regards to the climate change, but I can follow up. But normally, we have to do at least what the state is requiring.
At least.
In the past, we have been more restrictive, so council has provided that direction. So we've been updating it to be not more restrictive than what the state requires. But I would have to get back to you.
Yeah, I don't know if the planning for that is looking at building codes. It's just curious.
We can, because, I mean, we have the other climate group too as part of the comp plan update, so I would think that that would overlap a little bit, but I'll follow up.
So you just sparked a memory on something that ties all this together. One of the 500 plus emails that we had, there were several on what's happening with our environmental component of our comp plan, and are we taking into consideration impacts like Dabbler. And I had forwarded that with the question, and I copied you, to Oliver, and I don't think he understood my question, because he basically responded, well, we have public input available. My question was really going to, what happens with Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service, Department of Natural Resources land, any land that another jurisdiction is actually controlling, disposing of, responsible for, because we have a lot of that within Clark County. And so my question really went to, well, how are we taking that into effect in our planning under the climate action? Because that was the gist of what the constituent was suggesting. So I did want to hopefully tie that in and see if it is, being considered. And
yeah, I'll follow up with Oliver, because I know the cities are working on it from their jurisdiction, and they have delayed again from the last email I sent you guys. They're not quite ready yet. So, but I don't think Oliver did express like the DNR and the other land that's within Clark County that's not a city or a county. So I'll follow up with that.
okay, so I think 7.1 is well supported. How about 7.2?
So this is a request from community development to look at the land use review and wetland and habitat review programs and the fee study. So this is the program that we subsidize, general fund subsidizes every year in the tune of like 1.3 million-ish, Mark? Yeah. So, and these have not been updated in many, many years, so they're just looking at some data. I know we had some preliminary, I think, one-on-one discussions on this topic to come back to council and just talk about the fee schedule, what works, what's proposed, both for what makes sense for the cost of doing business and also hopefully reducing some of the subsidies to general fund.
And this is the fee schedule for our permitting department, for when people come to get permits and they're looking
Yes,
at.
for land use review and wetland and habitat. Those,
I am very interested in having a work session. I mean, we do get, at least I've gotten a number of really critical constituent complaints in this area.
regarding fees in those two areas,
Well,
this is regarding fee
The
schedule.
fees coupled with arbitrariness, what are wetlands and habitat review, and, yeah, I think all of the above, but anyone else?
I think it's a much needed area to look at.
Anyone online? Okay, thumbs up.
Just thumbs up.
All right, back to policy updates.
All right, I've got a few things for you today, counselors. For the record, Jordan Bogie. So the first thing that I would like to get some policy direction from council on today is related to the interstate bridge replacement. We got a request from the state, their office for the IBR. They are getting ready to release their draft supplemental environmental impact statement for the IBR. And they are, as part of that process, they're going to be doing public outreach. They've got a public participation plan. They had asked if the council was interested in having a presentation from that group to talk about what they're thinking with the supplemental environmental impact statement. give a chance for council to hear from them directly and, maybe have a little bit of Q&A. And so I just wanted to get the temperature of council and see if there were thumbs up to move forward with that. And if so, we can schedule.
I see one thumbs up. He already had a hearty hurrah from me. Okay, everyone's interested.
Would this be would our briefing be before or after the release of the impact statement, the draft impact statement?
That is a good question. I'm not sure exactly when they're releasing it, and it will probably depend on when we can get it scheduled. The tone of the email suggested that it would probably be before, if we could, but I think that'll depend on some of that timing. I can get that figured out.
And then the comment period.
It's supposed to be released, at least from what ODOT said, towards the end of September.
Okay, so we've got a little bit of time, so we might be able to get that scheduled before then.
Super.
And the comment period is?
I believe it's a 60-day comment period, if I'm remembering correctly.
Great.
Other policy updates?
Got a few more for you. So I also just wanted to give council an update on the mental health sales tax process. We had a coordinating meeting with the advisory board yesterday that went well. We've got the plan in place. We have 8 internal requests and 25 external requests for funding that passed. There's an administrative review for those external requests. I think there were 34 or 35 total, and then 25 of those external requests made it through the administrative portion. And so those 34 or 33 total requests will be considered by the advisory board, and then over the next couple months, and then those will be coming forward to council for final approval.
I just want to add a couple points to that. One, between internal and external, we have roughly 17 million pot to target to spend. And I think the number was 30 or 40 million dollars in requests.
Yeah.
So that's one point. The other is the big wild card are the 3 packages from jail that we're still waiting on. Are we getting those today?
Those are getting finalized today. I believe that those should be, well, they will be ready today. The budget office has said that, so.
And we didn't have enough applicants last cycle?
Yeah, one of the challenges last cycle was there were a lot of applicants that really had a challenge with the administrative side of things, both, and then also even with the ones that had passed the administrative review, that there just were some challenges with how they had framed their proposals that made it difficult to fund. And so I know that the Community Foundation of Southwest Washington and Community Services have been working with a lot of our local nonprofits to help give them some technical support so that they can put together strong applications. So I think that's a really great. I think so, yeah. So we've got a lot of strong applications, which is a great challenge to have for the group.
And you had another policy update?
Yes, the only other thing I wanted to just highlight a couple things. So our lobbyists had provided earlier this month a legislative report. I know council got that, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things from that report for council, because I know it was kind of lengthy. And so one of the ones was actually transportation funding, and so council's already talked through some of those options. Councilor Bellicott is on that committee now, which is great. But there is going to be a lot of deliberation about the best way to fund road maintenance going forward. And as folks are talking, different taxes, different tolling, use fees, folks are talking about delivery charges. Some other states are experimenting with that, with a small surcharge if you get, Uber Eats or DoorDash or anything like that. So I think people are trying to be creative in how we replace that funding that the state is losing and local governments are losing. And then only other couple of things, there was a crime report that the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs had released that had come out in July, and just wanted to give a highlight from that, which is that overall the crime has been declining, but it's still a lot higher than it was pre-pandemic. And so that's something for us to consider from a policy lens. And then the other item I wanted to highlight was that there was a Washington State Supreme Court case where they unanimously dismissed a challenge to a law in Lacey that prohibited RVs from parking on city streets or parking lots for longer than 4 hours. And so I know there's been a lot of policy conversation about camping, RV parking, how we handle this, in relation to the Supreme Court's decision recently with the Grants Pass case. And so I think really what that suggests to me is just the judiciary is giving a lot more flexibility to local governments in how they want to handle camping, parking, different things. And so it's a different policy environment than the one that we have been operating in the last several years. And I think that's just something for the council to understand and for us to think about as we move forward. So just wanted to highlight those couple of things from the report. There's a ton of other great stuff in here, but I won't take an hour and read you all through it. But just wanted to give you a few updates on that.
Any contact with any organization on the Hispanic Heritage Month?
I have left them a message as well. But yes, there are a couple of proclamations that I will be presenting, I think, next week for council's consideration, both a Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation that I'll be looking to see if council wants to move forward with. Day of Remembrance is coming up as well, so that's going to be one. And I think there might be one or two other ones, not off the top of my head, but Disability Employment Month. Thank you, Michelle. That one will also be coming forward, so I'll be bringing those to council for your consideration.
What month is that, the disability?
October.
Okay, super. So I think that concludes policy updates. So we have 3 executive sessions, and they will be conducted with our prosecuting attorney, our lawyers, having confidential discussions with lawyers about potential litigation is something that's well known in America, and it's a very highly protected attorney-client privilege proceeding. We will not be making any votes, nor are we planning on taking any action on any of the presentations today. Pending litigation, 9.1 is RCW 42.30. 110.1, I, for about 10 minutes. 9.2 is the same RCW for 5 minutes. And then 9.3, I believe, is the same RCW as well, or
Yes,
is that?
and it's pending litigation for 10 minutes.
Okay. So that's a total of 25 minutes. And how about, will you give us a little bit of a buffer, like 28 minutes? Oh, I'm sorry, are we vacating this room and
Yeah,
going?
you're gonna go back to your office and log on there, and I've got to start it. So.
Okay, so you have a separate log on for the executive session. Let's plan on coming back at roughly 2:30.
At 2:30.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just make
so
sure
we'll
they
break
got
from
it.
this public session and go into executive session.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, hello. The chair has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes, and open session will reconvene at 2:35. The chair has asked us to announce that the executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes, and open session will reconvene at 2:40.
That's what I was saying.
Okay, welcome back. We did have our meeting with the lawyers, and there's no action to take today and no matters to cover, so we are adjourned.